comes to making an album, you really have to have something that opens it up, that will engage the listener. You gotta have something good. When it came to writing The Void, I had gone through probably about 6 different ideas for a song. And the way The Void came about was kind of by accident, kind of a happy miracle, really. So I had a few ideas for writing the song, and I convinced myself on the morning of recording that the ideas were not good at all. But strangely enough, inspiration sort of came out of nowhere. And having listened to a lot of Peter Gabriel, A.R. Kane and Jesus and Mary Chain, I wanted to combine those into a song that sort of had that rhythmic structure of world music, but also combined with the shoegazy, dream poppy sort of sound. So I programmed a few parts onto the drum machine. I had the chord structure ready. So as soon as it came time to recording the song, I wasn't too confident about it. I just hoped that it would work. And strangely enough, it did. And by the end of it, Drew and I were convinced that it was probably one of the best things we'd ever done. And for The Void, a lot of happy accidents happened. So one example was the use of feedback. So guitar feedback as a musical instrument. I felt that to have a little bit of, not roughness, but an extra texture that wasn't usually found as opposed to synthesizers or rhythm guitar. So what had happened is we'd use my acoustic guitar, the Maton, and we'd put it through the overdrive amp in Drew's studio, so it would create a torrent of feedback. Now, we only ran one take of the song, and that take of the feedback you hear on the song, that is the take that's made the cut. So we only used one take. And what was interesting was I was holding my hands over the guitar strings and the sound hole just to prevent any sound from actually coming out. But it just seemed like the guitar had a mind of its own and was producing the sound on its own terms. And strangely enough, it worked. There was said that you can hear samples of murmurs from voice, as well as different sounds that have been traced through the guitar's sound hole to produce this feedback sort of sound. And when we listen back to the track, this overlay of feedback really added this extra dimension to the overall song. To go from a chaotic sounding start where it really engaged the listeners with a drum heavy aggressive sort of sound, to the more softer serene moments of the song, but then also having these little murmurs of feedback coming through the headphones of the speakers. It's one of the songs that I can listen to where I am immensely proud and gobsmacked at the same time that I managed to produce something like this, because I didn't think I had it in me. But looking at it now, I'm so glad that The Void came out the way it did, and I couldn't think of a better track to open the album. They Sailed Away was the first song to be written for the album, but it was originally to be just a single. This was before the actual whole album was conceived. It's really the song that was credited with providing the whole sound of the album, because it gave Drew and myself that eureka moment of the sound we've been searching for. Because in past releases, I'd relied heavily on synths. But for this particular song, I introduced the acoustic guitar to my acoustic guitar, the Maton. I hadn't used it on any recordings before, but I decided it was time to use it, as I'd been influenced by bands like The Church and The Smiths, where they used that jangly sound of the guitar. And it was really that moment that made us think, this is it, this is the sound we're after. And that came from using the acoustic guitar through the reverb unit, so that gave it this nice reverby cavernous sound. And from there the song really sort of wrote itself. It was probably the one song where everything came together so much easier because we sort of knew what we wanted. And the interesting thing about this song is it's there's no electric guitar in it. It's all acoustic guitars, and you might not think so, like depending on the sounds you hear. But it's also the first song that makes the use of the ebow. So the ebow is like a little instrument that you use for holding over your guitar strings. So it's got a little magnetic system, vibrates and creates endless sustain. So you can use it to sound like a violin or a wind instrument. And using that on the acoustic guitar really gave it this nice soaring sound to it. So we used that for the intro and the solo. It was also the first song I used a actual bass guitar on, and that became the theme for the rest of the album. So the album mostly uses bass guitar, whereas beforehand I'd used synthesizers for bass. And it's one of the songs that many people felt was a natural progression or evolution of the Tidal Peak sound, and a lot of people enjoyed it when it came out as a single. Love's Distant Echo was written via various forms. It started off as a very slow song because I'd been heavily influenced by the Cranberries or the Pixies, all those 4AD bands. But I was also a huge fan of Cocteau Twins, and when it came to writing the song, I really wanted to give that influence of that dreamy wall of sound in using heavily reverbed flanged guitars and a lot of chorus effects. It's probably the one song that makes minimal use of synthesizer. It's more as a texture than anything. But a lot of guitars blanket this song. It really was meant to be the most fast-paced and up-tempo number, but I was really aiming for a particular sound and to create that dreamy wall of sound with the guitars. Interestingly enough, people will hear in the chorus what sounds like a electric guitar being strummed. It's actually the acoustic guitar making its appearance again. So a number of 5 guitar tracks were produced for this song. So a lot of layers were really in this song, and you can probably hear it as well. There's a lot of reverb, a lot of echo, and it's definitely meant to be the most engaging, or one of the most engaging songs on the album. And it's a song about looking back and sort of trying to get on with your life, even though you miss that person that you might have loved. And a music video will be coming out for it as well, and we had a lot of fun shooting the music video, and it really matches, I think, sound-wise with the visuals that we've sort of incorporated. Saudade is a Portuguese word, and it translates to longing. So it definitely struck home when I wrote it. At the time, it was written around the same time as They Sailed Away, and it was intended to be released as the B-side prior to the album being realised as a whole project. It was the easiest song to do on the album in the fact that it was recorded and mixed and mastered in one single evening. So I'm a huge fan of the Durati column, and I kind of wanted to translate across in the song with the use of the electric guitar, so using a lot of delay and reverb to create this nice little rhythmic sort of structure. It's the one song on the album that doesn't use drums, so the drum machine was not employed for this song. It's mainly guitar, a bit of synthesizer for use on bass and chords, and just the voice. So it was very simply put together and very simply recorded, and we were very happy with how it came out, in the fact that it only took a single night, and that was the result. And at the time I thought it was probably one of the most heartfelt songs I'd written, as it's a song that's, as I said before, it translates to longing, but it's also to do with the fact that you got to accept that people move on and you got to move on yourself. So I really wanted to make that as a nice little, not a coda, but a little intermission, or part of the album where it goes from the heavier stuff to maybe the lighter stuff. A little bit of a change in dynamics, so to speak, when you've got songs that are fast, songs that are heavy, and then songs that are light, and this one's definitely one of the lighter songs. In my darkest year, not escape my fears. The Pacific Parade was written to be the final track on the album, and I knew from the start it would be a very large track. It was intended to be epic and long, and this was to do with influences not just in prog, but also post-punk, the longer, more drawn-out songs that take a while to sort of come together as a whole. You really want to take time to sort of get the sound and the song to evolve. And the funny thing about it was, being a concept album, I really wanted to tie things together. So when it came to recording Pacific Parade, I actually wrote a section that reprised the chord sequence of the first track, The Void. So it's very much The Void being reprised before going into the song The Pacific Parade. To get that sense of drowning in the album, I used a setting on the synthesizer, the microcorg, which sounded like waves going in one ear and out the other. So it sounded like someone standing on a beach, overcast, empty beach. The water is still, but the waves are crashing on the shore. And that sense of eerie abandonment and being cold and all alone. And this created a really ambient sort of soundscape to introduce the song, as well as conclude the album before it builds up into an actual song. And it's probably the one song that utilizes the most out of post-punk, as it has a very punchy bass line, heavy set drums. Once again, just like They Sailed Away, it's a song that does not use any electric guitar, only acoustic guitars. So acoustic guitar for the rhythm, for the lead. I was influenced by John Martin and the way he used an echoplex on his acoustic guitar to create these aural waves of sound that kind of blend in with the background. So that was used on the Maiden guitar as well. And the EBO makes a recurring appearance in the song as well towards the end. And it was probably the longest song to record for the whole entire album, but it was probably one of the most satisfying as well. Just that sense of this large epic track building up, and for a song that's nearly 10 minutes long, I'm really happy to have a lengthy song, because I know that on most albums people tend to go for the catchier 2-minute songs, but this isn't about catchy songs on this album. This is about listening and really taking it all in. And I think for a song of that size, it's really heavy to sort of take in. And I felt like it was a very good way to end the album on a somber note, to really look back onto the past, as the Pacific Parade is about looking into the past and once again accepting that times change, but you've got to move on, and you can either let it hold you back and drown, or you can keep swimming and get on with life.